Well, let's see what happens when we dedicate 2.5 hours every movie to the least interesting character of it. Hey guys, so I'm here to talk about the newest franchise movie, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. My YouTube title card is going to hate that title of the movie. So this is obviously the prequel movie about the Hunger Games trilogy, the Hunger Games movies, which I like about 2.5 of. That stars the main villain from the original trilogy, whose name is ridiculously long and hard to say, so I'm just going to call him Snow. And kind of his origin story and how he became, like, his road to becoming the big bad of the original Hunger Games franchise. I guess a quick run through what I thought about the previous films. I like the first two films. I thought, they're definitely of their era now. I have not watched them in years, so I have no idea if they still hold up. But I definitely know that what I thought was interesting about them, as opposed to a lot of other, like, teenage YA dystopian movies of their time, it felt like it did have something to say about, like, reality TV and how marketing and consumerism plays into the survival of people in poverty, in a quite literal sense that way. It's not exactly a subtle metaphor, but it still got the point across. I like the satirical elements of it. I like the over-the-topness of it. Sorry, I just got a text message. And I thought those parts were interesting. I thought this franchise was always the most interesting when it's delving into the idea of propaganda and marketing and like how to play to people like it is a game show, like it is, like, instead of actual real life. And this movie plays with themes of that, although not quite nearly as strong or as interestingly. The big problem this movie has, and I mentioned it at the intro, which is it's dedicated to the least interesting character in its cast. Everyone is more interesting than Snow in this movie, but because Snow is the big bad, and I guess for some reason we hitched everything onto him, we need to focus on him the entire time. So, a brief rundown of the movie is about, for those who don't remember, or if you've kind of memory hold the Hunger Games franchise, which I can't necessarily blame you if that's the case, but this one takes place like several decades before the events of the original trilogy, or the original I guess quadrilogy, whatever. I guess it's a trilogy if you include part 1 and 2 of the finale, but whatever. And this stars a young Snow who currently lives in poverty. He's trying to break out of poverty. He's going to a fancy school as a result, where he is working with the original creator of the Hunger Games, played by Peter Dinklage. And for some reason I can't find his character name, so he'll be Peter Dinklage as far as I'm concerned. And he introduces a new program that is introduced partially by Viola Davis, who plays Dr. Vlumnia Gall. Instead, at this point, like, people aren't, like, the Hunger Games exist at this point. People are participating in it, but no one's really watching it at this stage, and they want to introduce more life into it. So they have these people at this posh school become mentors for the people who are selected to be in the Hunger Games, to make it more interesting, to make it more marketable, to get people more watch more, and get them more invested in what's happening. Snow ends up with Lucy Gray, and if you don't remember her name, don't worry, they're going to say about 50 more million times before the movie's over, played by Rachel Ziegler. Who is unfortunately getting her own dumb racist backlash. I think, like, she's the one in the Snow White movie is coming up, isn't it? Like, something like that. I know she was in West Side Story. She was very good in that. She's in the current Snow White movie. But compared to Katniss in the original movie, Lucy Gray is much more charismatic. She sings, she has a great voice, she's very impassioned emotion, so she naturally kind of attracts an audience that way. She and Snow kind of, like, not hit it off, but understand the situation very quickly of they need each other to survive, essentially. Snow ends to become more invested in Lucy Gray as time goes on, and he starts working behind the scenes to make sure that she actually survives the Hunger Games. That's the basic setup for the story. How it actually plays out is 2.5 hours that you do not need. And for the first 2 acts of the film, like, it actually works pretty okay. I was never ultra invested in Snow as a character. I thought, like, and it's not even the actor's fault, Tom Blythe. because I think he does an admirable job with the material he was given. I think he's making the best of this material he can. But the problem is, the character himself is just a charisma vacuum. He has no charisma on his own. The character isn't all that interesting. There's not a real reason to be invested in him, especially since you know where the character goes. This is I was gonna say this is like an Anakin Skywalker situation, except it kind of is, because Anakin Skywalker is also a charisma vacuum in his own movies. But actually, it's a lot like Anakin Skywalker now I think about it. Oh god, it's really hitting me now. Fuck. Oh god, I hope we don't make 2 more of these. Fuck. Okay. Anyway. But that being said, Rachel Zegler's very good. I hope you like country songs, because she does a lot of singing for country songs in this movie, and they really exploit the fact that she's a good singer, which didn't really bother me. It really bothered my partner, but I was very, very, very okay with it. But that being said, like, there is an implied romance there, as you would expect from a YA, like a YA spinoff. And it never really rings true. It always feels kind of not want to say half-assed. The two don't have that kind of chemistry for a good majority of the film. And when it does finally kind of go that direction, it just doesn't, like, okay, whatever, it's happening. And, like, here's the thing. This movie stopped about 2/3 of the way through. I was like, okay, this is a solid, like, 7 out of 10. It's not bad. Like, it's not great, but it's not bad either. But then it keeps going past its natural stopping point for a whole, like, 8-hour-long epilogue of what this basically becomes. What happens after the Hunger Games. I don't think it's a spoiler to say she wins. And because, okay, but this part will be spoilers, so be warned. If you're planning on watching this, stop now. Where, because he cheated to help her win, he is exiled to work as a peacekeeping officer, and he chooses to be in her district so they can kind of be together, and they can start kind of flirtatious thing going on there. This is where the movie really fucking drags, because you no longer have the attention of the Hunger Games, and you know kind of where it's going, where you know this is kind of like his path to evil. And yada yada yada, but the way they get there is so dragged out and so long and so uninteresting that at some point it's like, okay, can we just get to the point? And because we all know where this is going, we all can see what pieces are in play, we can all see where, like, this is headed, but it just drags and drags and drags, and by the time you actually get to the conclusion, you're just waiting for the movie to be over. And that's easily the weakest part of the film. I will give it this compared to its predecessors, that it does feel like the violence is a bit more intense than the other movies. The other movies are very, like, I mean, still murdering children, so there's only, I won't say it's like super clean, but it's more so than this one. This one feels more brutal. This one feels more like down in the gutter kind of fighting, which does help it stand out, and that's why the Hunger Game portion in particular still, like, holds up pretty well. It's just everything before and after that kind of just that being said, the performances around it are pretty good. Like, Peter Dinklage puts in a pretty good performance. Viola Davis is having a great time just chewing the fucking scenery. He's having a great old time, and I'm trying to figure out who else is in this movie that I can highlight as, like, okay, these are good, like, good actors doing their jobs. Because there is a lot of interesting characters in it. It just, none of them are the main character. Like, there's one character, Festus Creed, that's his name, that's not Festus, but one of the other mentor characters, is, like, more opposed to the games. He basically wants to make a statement against them. And then his arc is kind of interesting. Lucy Gray's arc she has a pretty good, I don't know if she has an arc, but, Rachel Zegler does make a meal of the performance. She does a pretty good job. Pretty much everyone else I'd rather be watching for 2.5 hours other than who we end up watching. And it doesn't make the movie terrible, and I'm not going to say, like, it's, oh god, this is fucking awful, but it does mean that when it drags, it really drags, and it just becomes boring and uninteresting. I don't think it's the actor's fault. I think it's the writing's fault, and if we get 2 more of these, then God help us, because I don't know how much we can really endure of this character in particular. That being said, we'll see. Again, if I had to give this a number, I'd give it a solid 6. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say about this Hunger Games prequel. So, thank you all for watching. I'm going to catch up my last movie that I watched just today, which is Trolls 3. Yay. See you there.